looking at the advances that we've made in public relations, and as we move toward the notion of a global public relations area, things are changing in terms of, instead of being a media relations oriented profession, we've now moved to trying to actually impact on behavior, and impact on that behavior in such a way that we create a shared social value for the constituents or the stakeholders that we have. In terms of Indonesia, I have seen over the past 10 years an increase in the sophistication of the practice of public relations. Since public relations is tied to a large degree to democracy and democratization, the movement within political affairs, the movement within corporate communication has become more than simply media relations and government relations. The practice is extremely sophisticated. It is highly competitive, and from what I have seen, the future students coming in are very well prepared. If you don't do research, you don't know whether or not you've moved the needle. You don't know whether or not you have made a change at all. So research has to be done in planning your campaign. If you haven't done your research, you don't know what your benchmarks are. If you don't know what your benchmarks are or your baseline, you have no way of changing your strategy throughout the campaign if there's a problem. So research in strategic communication, strategic public relations, without research, it doesn't exist. You've got to take the data you've got, create a narrative that will explain that if we spend more money to get better data, we'll have better results and more precision. And if you truly want to get behavior change, you have to understand exactly what the topic area is, the problem area is. You have in your informational aspect communication intelligence that builds into business intelligence that builds into product production. In the next 5 to 10 years, if you're not working with big data, you're probably not going to be doing a good job. You know, we talk about the market of one, the individual market. Even though we still, when we look at our target audiences, we still look at them in terms of the sociographic, psychographic variables that are there. What are the age levels? What groups do they belong to? What culture? What religion? Okay. Now we can look within those same sort of things, and we can then pick out people who are either above the average or below the average, pull them out and look at them individually. And then if we're tracking social media, we can find out, well, who influences them? And now we're beginning to get opinion leaders. And then we can establish messages to them to say, hey, you should do this. And if they go ahead and retweet it, or they go ahead and comment on it, it comes back in the social media, and it becomes what we call third-party endorsement. But it gives you the capability to deep dive into the data, and instead of having aggregated forms, okay, percentage male, percentage female, larger numbers, now we can go down to those individual sort of things and say, okay, on these traits, who are the top 5? And what are they doing? And then over time, we can see how the behavior change, or what the outcome that we're interested in changes. And you would expect it maybe to do this, but on the other hand, it may oscillate. And the big data gives you a chance to look at it and statistically test that against the assumption of no change. What you're looking at when you're talking about big data is the real-time acquisition of information that you're looking for. It probably would be, you could probably trace it back to the first use of credit cards, and then look at grocery shopping where you're scanning items, and every time you scan an item, they're taking the data and working with it. They then can tie that to the credit card that's used to pay for it, go to the credit card company, get the demographic data, and can begin to look at supply chain orientation in terms of getting products up. And a good example of of big data use is Coca-Cola Company. And what Coca-Cola Company does is they have push-button machines for fountain drinks. And so you walk up to it and it's got a big Coca-Cola. You push the Coca-Cola, the information goes to Coca-Cola, okay, to their marketing area. After you push that button, you get their entire brand sequence coming up. You push that button, they get that, okay? Once the brand comes up, now we have the flavors coming up. You push that, okay, and now they know through geolocation as to where the machine is, okay, who is using which brands. And by the way, if you go back, they know that too. So if you go in and you choose Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, caffeine-free, lemon flavored, okay, and you do it 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, you're extremely intent, you know where you're going. On the other hand, if you're going between root beer and Coca-Cola and Sprite or something like that, okay, you've got a customer that's not as directed as they would be otherwise. Now, they can then tie that into other data that may be there, such as video monitoring. But right now, basically, all they need to know is in this geolocation and this type of restaurant or this type of booth, who typically uses it, and then they can go in and say, pull this, add this, and they can do flavor testing. They can see, what do Indonesians prefer? You know, what if we put up Diet Coke and Coke Zero? Okay, which are they going to do? So it gives them a marketing aspect. We do the same thing with big data and public relations. We take that data and we put it into a predictive formula, and we can now begin to predict how people are going to respond. The difference between large data, okay, and big data is that big data continually is brought in, it's infinite. With big data, we stop at a particular point in time. So we do time series type analysis in big data, looking to see how changes occur against predicted change over time.